Excellent. So I'm so pleased to welcome Sophie Blackmore from the Happy Marketer today. And what Sophie does is help small business owners, consultants and entrepreneurs cut through the marketing BS by creating simple marketing strategies and practical solutions. Sophie gives clarity, focus and confidence to get things done, all with a big smile, gallons of coffee and the occasional TikToks. I love your TikToks, Sophie. Over to you. Welcome to Talk Business Virtual.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for having me. Yes, so that introduction does sum up in a nutshell now TikTok is not technically part of my marketing strategy. It's just something I like playing around with because it makes me laugh. But as we said, you know, the crossover between your personal and what you enjoy in your business, there tends to be some grey areas, and TikTok is one of those for me. I think probably because people on LinkedIn quite often haven't come across an awful lot of TikTok, so they think I'm being incredibly clever and original, whereas actually I'm not at all. but I'll take it. So what I'll try and do, if this works, is share my screen. And let me know whether you can see it once I do. I have got, it won't be death by PowerPoint. Right, can everybody see Sophie Happy Marketer Limited?
We can, yeah.
3 big mistakes. Okay, so I thought, because I don't have an awful lot of time, I would share sort of common mistakes that many people that I come across and other marketers come across that they do, because I thought that might be helpful depending on wherever you are in your marketing journey, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you're very overwhelmed by it. All of these things hopefully will be helpful. That was the idea behind it. And I'm actually in quite a large marketing group that's full of really helpful people, and I asked them the question as well, just to see whether, you know, my thoughts were the same as them, and said, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes? And there were some varieties, but these were sort of amongst the top 5, I would say, these 3, so I thought I'd go with those first. So excuse my very cheesy pictures of me doing all of this and the pointing and stuff. I had a very wonderful photographer do some remote photography in the first lockdown, which was amazing. So it now goes on everything, because I just think it was very clever. So, oops. Here we go. So what is marketing? It's not just social media. This is something that sometimes I have to kind of point out, because a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that marketing is purely about bringing in leads, which of course it is. It's there to help you sell your product, but it's kind of bigger than that. It's for creating, communicating, delivering, exchanging offerings. It's about sort of telling everybody about your product or your service, everything that there is to know about it without them actually buying it, so that they then know and are able to buy it. And I think we tend to make the mistake as small business owners in particular of sort of thinking, right, I've got this set up and I've got that set up, and now I'm going to go and do some marketing, and then that'll bring in all this lovely stuff and I'll be sorted. And it's slightly different to that. It's not business development and it's not sales. It is about developing an understanding and developing a relationship with your customers. So it's important to think about it not just as short-term gain, but across your business, because there are many different ways in which you can put in marketing into when that customer comes into contact with you, whether that's before you start or even after you've finished. Like, what will the follow-up be? Have you asked them for reviews? That's still part of marketing. So it's important to think about it as a whole that you can plug into the business. So where to start? I had to use that picture just because it makes me laugh. You know, it is overwhelming for people sometimes. Where do I begin? What do I do? And quite often when you speak to people who have had some success, they will normally prescribe to you what worked for them, right? So if somebody started a podcast, they're like, oh, it's the best thing ever, you totally need to do it. I don't know how many of you got sucked into the whole Clubhouse is the next best thing wave that happened not that long ago, and everybody was rushing over to Clubhouse and, you know, have you got the exclusive invite and do you need to be there? And surprise, surprise, it's kind of died down a little bit. It's not to say that it's not right for your business, but it might not be the right place to start. So mistake number one, marketing myopia. What do I mean by marketing myopia? I mean, don't confuse your tactics with your strategy. Your tactics are everything from social, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. You've got advertising, you've got Google ads, you've got PR, you've got newspapers, you've got direct mail, you've got email. All of these are tactics. They are not your strategy. And if you dive into a tactic first, what you will find is that a little bit further down the line, you're thinking, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? You know, you might get lots and lots of people liking a post and no business out of it. And you think, I don't get it. And it's because you've not taken that step back to work out which tactics you need. Now, this is not my example, but I think it's really useful. It's from a very wonderful lady called Bryony, who runs something called Watertight Marketing. Go and follow her, she's amazing. But her example is, somebody phoned you up and said, I need you to make a hole in my wall. Would you just pick up a sledgehammer and go and wallop a hole in the wall? Probably not. What's the hole for? Is it a hole on the outside wall because you're going to build an extension, in which case you need a pretty massive hole? Or actually, did she just need to hang up a picture in the living room, in which case you need probably quite a small tack and a little hammer? What is the hole that you're trying to create? Not all tactics are right for your business. So take a step back, make a plan. That's all a strategy is. Make a plan of what it is that you want to use that will help you with your business. What that does is it means when you've carved out that time that's so precious to people who are quite often working on their own and are having to wear every hat from HR to finance to God knows what, when you've carved out that half an hour to do your marketing, you've got your plan in front of you and you think, right, what was I doing? Oh yes, I was doing this. It keeps you focused, and it also stops you from being distracted by the bright and shiny, beautiful things that suddenly popped up over here, which if you're anything like me, I go, oh, look, bright, shiny thing, and off I go. That might be perfect for you, or it might not. Make assumptions. As a marketer, the worst thing you can do is make assumptions, and it's no different for your business. It's really dangerous to base your marketing strategy on what you think or your experience, even if you started your business based on a problem that you have then found a solution to, because the minute that you become in that business, you lose the ability to see it objectively. So if you base your strategy on, oh, well, when I went into Tesco's, they said so and so, so and so, and it made me feel that way, you're only using your own experience. And that's quite dangerous, because you start to make assumptions, you start to go down a route where you think you know what your customer is buying. And actually, quite often, they're not buying what you think you're selling, if that makes sense. So I've spoken to my customers as an example. Some of them I work with regularly and some I work with one-off projects. And I always ask them, what was the reason that you wanted to work with me? And what was the thing that you found most helpful that you got out of it the other end? Quite often they are two very different things. I assume I'm giving them one thing because as a marketer, that's where I'm driving from. That's what I see that their need is. What they're actually getting the other end, and they're telling me that they found the most valuable, is often not those things. And by speaking to them and using their experience and their feedback, I can then put that into my marketing plan to say, actually, I was kind of wrong there. I was assuming that they wanted X or Y, which they kind of did, but it wasn't that. It was because of this. And that's what I'm going to talk about now on, for me, LinkedIn, or if I do a daft TikTok or whatever it is. Unless your customer is only you, assume you know nothing and start from there. If you have created a business where you're building up something based on your experience or based on something that you've created, my top tip would be take that assumption and go and see if you can prove or disprove it. Okay, because your experience isn't worth nothing. Your understanding, your knowledge isn't worth nothing. I'm not saying that. But write down what you think it is, and then go and do some research. Do some desk research, speak to other customers, speak to other business owners, and see whether you can prove or disprove that assumption, to make sure that you're always questioning that and you're not ending up with this narrative that actually is your narrative and not the narrative of your customer. And number 3, the curse of omnipresence. We touched on it in the last point. Unless you are Facebook, who, let's be honest, they still can't get it right in the metaverse, you can't be everywhere and sell everything to everyone. It's going to be impossible. Part of a marketing plan is making choices about the things that you're going to do and the things that you're not going to do. That doesn't mean that you can't change those choices. Say you make a plan for the next 6 months. You get to the end of that 6 months and you look at it and you say, okay, tactic 1, 2, and 3 worked really well. Tactic 4 has bombed. That's not working for me. I need to change it. You can change it. It doesn't mean that you've drawn a line in the sand and you're never going back there. But in order for you to deliver, to actually do the plan, you need to have made some choices to make it possible for you. Because let's be honest, we only have limited resource, whether that's time or money. We can argue that's the same thing. You either pay somebody else to do it or you do it yourself, right? Picking 2 or 3 things and doing them well and making those choices is really, really important, because the deeper that you can go into something, the more return you're likely to get. So you can see these things as I've been talking about them, you kind of work them back in reverse order, right? It's an awful lot easier to decide who you're going to sell to if you know how they think and what they want, right? You're not going to know what they think and what they want unless you've done the research. And you're not going to be able to make a plan about what it is you're going to do to try and get to them if you haven't thought that through. So if you work it backwards, it's like planning the holiday of a lifetime. You look at all the possible destinations of where you'd like to go, you narrow it down, then you do some research, then you work out what you're going to need to take for that holiday, because if you're going scuba diving, it's going to be slightly different to climbing in the Rockies, right? Then you take the stuff and you go on the journey. That's all marketing is very, very simple steps. And they haven't really changed since like the 1960s, I think, when they came up with the 4 Ps of marketing. The fundamentals haven't changed. What changes rapidly at an exhausting rate is how you can use those strategies. What are the tactics at your disposal? Because they come up a lot, they change a lot. Digital marketing sounds very scary. I would argue that actually 80% of marketing is digital. If you read a newspaper, do you read it on your phone? Well, it's digital marketing. If you see an advert, you know, on a bus stop, chances are it might be on a screen. It's also digital marketing. It's all marketing, it's all tactics. So make some choices about where you want to be and start small. Doesn't mean you can't get bigger. Start in one area, make that work and build on that. You try and spread yourself too thin across too many places, you'll ultimately just end up getting very, very overwhelmed and not getting anywhere fast. And nobody wants that. And that's it. That's all I'm going to go through, because I figured that little bit, hopefully, is helpful. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can pop me an email. There's a little sign-up form on my website where I send out a newsletter. It's about every 2 weeks. It's not overly painful, but each time it's sort of general marketing musings and ramblings from myself about things that I think are helpful for people in business. So I have a few people that are on that mailing list now, and it's useful, I think, for a lot of people to be able to refer back to, because they might say, oh, well, actually, I'm sure Sophie talks about email in one of them. I'll go back and find it. It's quite a handy resource and it's free. So feel free. Equally, if you'd rather not, that's all good. And that's me. any questions?
Excellent. Yes, let's please open up the floor for questions. I will stop the recording if that's okay.